Hi, my name is Nick Burnham and I'm here for Motorboat and Yachting at Sunseeker in Poole, looking at this, the Sunseeker Portofino 40. Now this is a boat that was brought out in 2012 and it was designed to act as an entry point to the range, whereas at the time the smallest boat was the Portofino 48. This boat dropped the price of entry down by about £200,000. Now before we go on board, there's a couple of things to mention that were options on the outside of this boat. The first is the hull colour. Sunseeker actually offered a variety of colours, but in fact in reality the vast majority went out as either white or black. Black's quite useful because it hides the shape of the windows. The white tends to be a little bit more durable. The other thing that you could have as an option when the boat was new and therefore was worth looking out for second hand is the bathing platform. The standard platform came to here. They offered an extension to here which gave you more room to put a dinghy on, but obviously a bit of extra cost in terms of your length overall. And then finally there was an option of a high-low platform that would lift a small jet ski or even a small jet rib. The other thing while we're on the outside is the engines. They're all on outdrives, duoprop outdrives. 330 horsepower engines were standard. That gave the boat speed in the mid-30s. There was an option of 400 horsepower engines. That took the speed up to nearly 40 knots, but it's quite a rare option because that was nearly £28,000 when it was new as an engine. Now up here in the cockpit the layout was pretty standard. There weren't very many options, but there's a couple of neat details worth having a look at. The first is the seating at the back here. It's got a very small sunbed, but the seating itself, the backrest cantilevers forward, and that increases the size of that hugely, so you have got a nice sunbathing area. Table also drops and unfolds. Then over on this side there's a wet bar, and that's giving you a sink, a griddle and a cool box, and there was an option of an ice maker there as well. Now at the front end of the cockpit it's fairly conventional. On the starboard side you've got a double helm position as you'd expect. What's more interesting is over here on the port side, because rather than the Shay lounge that a lot of manufacturers fit, Sunseeker put a forward-facing seat here, which is really comfortable for when you're going along, because all your passengers at the front here are actually facing forward. They've raised the floor quite high, but it's actually still a reasonably comfortable place to sit. But the advantage of that is when we go downstairs, because as you'll see in the lobby of the mid-cabin, there's really good headroom as you enter that room. So down here in the cabin, it's all pretty conventional. You've got a master cabin forward with a central double berth, and that's got ensuite access to the day heads, which is also accessed from here. That's a good size. There's a separate shower stall in there, so you can have a shower without getting everything wet. Here in the main saloon, there's a big dining area over on this side. There's an option to have this converted into a double berth if you wanted. It wasn't standard, but a lot of boats had it. And then of course your galley is opposite on the starboard side. The mid-cabin is a really good size on this boat. As I mentioned in the cockpit, as you go into that cabin you've got really good headroom, and there's also the option of a small cot berth on top of the storage as you go in on your right hand side. There's two single beds in there, both a good size, and they will slide together to make that into a double berth if you want to. In fact, that's such a good cabin that some people use it as a master cabin because you avoid the noise of the slapping on the chines, which is quite a nice feature. Now the last thing to talk about on this boat is the interior finish, because Ken Freevock was involved in this, who's a very famous interior boat designer, and this particular finish is one of his. It's Wenge and a Negre, and it's a nice light finish that really works well because there's big windows down here on both sides and plenty of skylights in the ceiling, so it makes for a really light open interior. But you could also have had American walnut, and the final option was a high gloss cherry, which is a more traditional Sunseeker feature. Now this boat finished production only 2 years later in 2014, and a big part of that was the fact that it was such an expensive boat to build. Sunseeker really refused to compromise on their quality, and at the price that this boat goes out at, they really weren't making anything at all. In fact, the rumour was they were making a loss on every one. And just to give you a little example of that quality is this management system that we've got over here. This is the kind of touchscreen LED display that you get on the big boats, and that really, I think, cements the sort of style of this boat. It was a popular boat. They made over 70 of them, but as I say, it was a short run, and if you want one, 2012 to 2014 was the production run.